Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for coming to my channel and painting with me today. So, if you've watched any of my other videos before, welcome back. I'm so happy to see you again. I have recently been experimenting and learning how to paint with gouache, and something in me just really took to it, and now I can't get enough. Whereas, if you would have talked to me even a month ago or two, I would have told you I was too afraid to try. I usually in the past just stuck with watercolors and sketching and pen, which is amazing and fun all in itself, but sometimes it pays to branch out and try something new, which is what I did. And here we are making lovely landscapes together. So for this video, I left out um, a couple of colors and my palette, and I'm going to actually include a photo of that in this video so you can see what I'm using. It is kind of a wide array that I mixed together, and I just wanted to show you which ones I selected and which set I'm using in case you feel lost and you don't know where to start. I highly recommend getting the professional grade paints. They are so much more pigmented and concentrated, and they look more like gouache than watercolor, because before I was using some that were more of like a student grade, and they really just were so radically different that I couldn't go back to those. Whereas with watercolors, I feel like it's not as big of a deal. If you get a more like casual set, you can still get some really nice effects with those. So just something to keep in mind if you're starting out. Today what I did is I got my painter's board or my drawing board, and I used my masking painter's tape to really strap down all four corners of my watercolor paper. And I'm just using regular Amazon generic watercolor paper. It's worked quite well for me so far. I would love to hear your recommendations because I haven't tried anything else yet. And I cut it into a tall rectangle shape that works really well for these little small mini gouache painting sessions. And I got a couple of bowls of water to use, and now I'm ready to paint. I have a mop brush that I'm using, a small detail brush, and a medium-sized brush. So let's get started. We have everything ready here and set up, and I just want to apologize for the slight darker lighting in this video. I feel like it was a more cloudy day, and I didn't realize it until too late that it wasn't as bright out as I had hoped. So you're going to notice that the drawings or the finished paintings at the beginning and end are going to look a little brighter than what they do here on screen. And that is why. So just keep in mind that you might want to add a little more vibrancy than what you see me doing. So I'm starting out with just a light sky blue mixed with white here at the very top of the painting. I am using my medium-sized brush mixed with just enough water so that it glides smoothly over the crevices in the paper. So it's going to be thicker looking than watercolor, but still kind of watery, and it's not super thick and heavy. You might just need to experiment a little bit, but whenever the paint starts gliding smoothly over the paper without skipping over the white spots, then you'll know that it's a good consistency. I left some white space there, and then I skipped down and I did like a yellowish color beneath it. This sky is going to be like a beautiful sunset. So there's going to be purples and pinks and oranges and yellows in it. And I've never painted a sunset before, so this was fun and new to me. And this is actually looking a little green, so if you want to just do less green and more yellow, I think that's what I, at the end, eventually adjusted it out to be. It was just greenish, I think, because of my water, something I had on the brush before. So a little bit more yellow than green. Here I'm coming in with some smoky purpley gray for my clouds. There weren't a whole lot of big white fluffy clouds in this. Since it's a sunset, it almost looks like the clouds are like lazily stretching across the sky. So keep that in mind when you paint your clouds. You want them to look like more horizontal. So I'd work in horizontal stripes of color. And these clouds definitely are more flat and scrolling or like sprawling across the sky. And right now, I'm not doing a lot of blending. I'm just working on making sure I have concentrated stripes of color in the sky, and then I'm going to work on blending it after. That's how I make it not too muddy, which is a common problem that I've run into myself before too. So here I'm just going to come in and just slightly blend it so it doesn't dry too intensely, but I'm working really hard to not um, blend all the colors together exactly either. Just the blue and the smoky gray to kind of make it look like clouds. Just use a light hand with it. I'm just adding some water to my brush and then going in. And then make sure you have a towel or something to dry the brush off in between so you're not carrying too much color over into the other ones whenever you use your mop brush. So here the sky's already looking a little bit more mottled and blended. I'm mixing up some more colors now to add in some more depth to that sky. All right, next color is going to be a shockingly bright pink. At least it felt that way because, like I said, you want your color bands to be more intense rather than super blended and washed out, because that's going to give you that wow factor at the end where you can just be like, wow, look at that sky. I can really see where the colors are shifting and turning. And now a band of purple beneath it. And like I said, just add just enough water so it blends, so you still get that thick gouache look. And as I create the horizon, I don't want to do a straight line across. I almost want it to dip in at the middle like a V, because if you would look at a natural landscape photo, then you'll see that hills and the land usually doesn't just go in a straight line. It curves. So we're just going to make sure it gets kind of curvy. And here I'm adding in some orange because I noticed there's some orange in the sky. And now we're going to take that mop brush and blend it so the colors are not too solid. We just want the colors to sort of like whisper to each other but not blend completely. And the best way to do that is, like I said, make your color lines and then only blend where they meet, and use the side edge of that brush so it's not too heavy. And here I am. If you want to just go in with your medium-sized brush and add a little bit more like orange or pink, whatever you think it needs, don't be afraid to make it a little brighter than you think, because it will dry a touch lighter than you see on the paper too. That's a good tip. And here I am just blending until it feels right. And I think that looks pretty good. Now I'm adding some deeper purple, and I noticed there's almost some darker purple smoky clouds towards the bottom of that horizon line, so I'm trying to mimic that by using the mop brush to sort of blend them. It's almost like a purpley orange. Next, I'm adding some cloud details, which are going to get blended into. It's just more of that slightly grayer, smokier purple. And using the kind of edge of that mop brush, you can just dabble it, sort of like with your wrist and your hand, just picking the brush off the paper quickly, and then working to make those cloud shapes. Like they're still fluffy, but they're more like horizontal lines, and then they stretch out like arms across the sky. They're very skinny. Yeah, and then I'm just blending it a little more up towards the top, and it's really starting to visualize now and look like a sky, isn't it? Making sure that the sky is darker towards the top and the sides, I think, is helpful to give it that more natural look too. We're trying to make the lighter focal points towards the center of our painting. So your eye is drawn there first, and that's usually what makes for a very pleasing painting. Whenever you have something towards the middle that's bright and eye-catching. Now we're going to paint in our grassy hills. So I like to paint them in this sort of dipped V shape. So making each side slant downwards towards the middle in some way, not completely straight across. That's going to give you a more natural, pleasing look. I'm starting with a dark olive green, and then I lightened it up a little bit. So I did a slightly yellower, more yellowy olive green beneath it. And I'm just working in that sort of curved line, brushing straight across the painting with that medium brush. And now I'm going to get another color. So we just want to have a couple different shades and colors of green. And we don't want to blend them too much. This will keep it interesting. This is like a dark sort of forest evergreen color. Add a little more water to that. And like I said, I'm not really doing it exactly straight across. I'm making it sort of curved a little bit, that line. So it just mimics how the wind has shaped the smooth lines of the hills through the ages. Now finally, a very dark evergreen color. I mixed some black in there for the very bottom. This is where our patches of wild daisies will grow. I'm extending this up a little bit. Adding a little bit of water so it's not too dark. And making it just a touch lighter in the center there. I'm going to add some tree-like shapes to that distant horizon. Just like some bushes, not really trees, but more like shrubs and bushes, because it's pretty bare, this landscape. Now I'm coming in with some yellow. This is where the sunset is really shining down on the grass and the earth, so it kind of looks like that light from the sky is reflecting downwards. So we really want to make it clear and light enough to distinguish itself, and making it follow that downwards V motion towards the center, stretching it out. Looks like it could be patches of flowers too, we don't know. It's just kind of meandering over the hills. I blended it with a little bit more water. You just want it to look blended but still distinct. Now I added some pink that matches the pink in the sky, and I added some reflections to the top of the hills where the sun is reflecting off of them, mirroring what you see in the sky just a bit. Creates a very lifelike and realistic look to your painting. So don't skip that part. Now I let the sky dry a little bit and I'm just going back in a little bit more, blending it a little more. I'm adding some whitish, purplish blue to my mop brush and just coming back in and adding some horizontal clouds. There's already some white space there. I'm just going over it again to emphasize it a little bit more. So you may or may not need this step. Just feel it out and take each suggestion with a grain of salt depending on what your painting needs. That's why I love painting these landscapes, because each one is going to turn out differently, just as each piece of nature is going to be different from one scene to the next. Now I'm adding a bit more slightly darker blue to the sides to create a bit of a vignette, and the top. And now we need to blend it a little bit. Some fresh water on that brush, just water. And I'm coming in, blending it out a little bit. Now I'm feeling like I might want to blot a little bit of that. I have a towel. I'm just going to grab that to get rid of the oversaturation of color and water. I make lots of mistakes, and I just want you all to know that it's actually very normal. So here I am, just taking a paper towel, rubbing the brush on that, going over it with just a little bit of water on it to remove some of that color. That's a lovely thing about gouache, and is a good reason to not be afraid of it. We can always remove color, especially if you catch it early. And so now we're left with this beautiful dark band at the top, and the sky looks quite natural. I'm getting a little more white because I'm sure you other painters can relate. Whenever I get a set of paints, I feel like the white is the most heavily used and I use it up the fastest. So I'm always adding more white than I think I need. Okay, so now things have dried a little bit more. So we are going to start adding some detail to our grassy hills. This is where it really starts coming together. Mixing up some greens. Now you want to do lighter colors in the darker areas and darker colors in the lighter areas so it stands out. So this one I'm doing a slightly darker grass, and to blend these hills together and make things look very nice and natural, I'm just going to take that and blend it up. Smaller straight strokes the further back you get, and taller ones the closer you are to the bottom, to create the visual perception of distance. And that takes us right into a painting using that technique, which is so useful and so helpful to create visually enticing and welcoming paintings that just make you want to step into them. That is my goal anyways, and that's what I'm trying to get better at doing. I think that's what we all would like. So I'm just doing more and more grass. There's tall grass because we're in an overgrown area, maybe something you would see off the highway with just lots of wild things growing, kind of untouched and undisturbed. Adding some of that darker green grass all throughout. And something that's helpful for me is just remembering that flowers and grass usually grow in patches sometimes, so it's not just everywhere all over. It looks more natural if you kind of do patches that stretch out almost like how the clouds horizontally go across a field, but not from one side to the other perfectly. They kind of like creep up the sides of the hill. And that color for me was a little off, so I think I'm just adjusting it right here. Yeah, just adding a little bit more warmth to that green. Getting some lighter green in there. Yeah, you want to just have the light strokes with the dark strokes. I've noticed it's fun with the grass to kind of make it look like each patch is going in the same direction. but they're all kind of going in different directions at the same time. So if you have a little patch of grass, it's fun to make a cluster of it all looking like it's being blown by the wind in one direction, and then you look at the patch next to it, maybe that's straight up. But there's this almost disheveledness about the grass patterns. So it's not all perfectly sticking straight up in the air. And that's how you're going to get a natural, believable field, is just thinking about how they all kind of grow a little differently. And here I am adding just a few leaves in and stems because we're going to be adding flowers in a short amount of time here. Just a few leaves. And this particular scene has what looks like black-eyed Susans. They're daisy-like flowers, almost like miniature sunflowers, and I don't know the perfect name for them. So if anyone knows, just put it in the comments. But they're very pretty and they grow wild. Just a few more stems here. We want some larger flowers closest to us. There'll be a couple growing in the background, but not quite so many, because we want our focal point to be the center. So most of our flowers will be there, and they're going to be yellow. So yellow is always a really nice eye-catching color. Whenever we paint, we're using our paints to draw the attention of the viewer, and we hold so much power in our brush and the colors that we choose and how we choose to arrange things. And mastering that is really, really hard. And I'm not saying that I've mastered it, but when you do start to become familiar with that, then it feels really good. It's just kind of amazing what you can do with just your hand and some paints. Even the emotions that it evokes sometimes. It's just really special. Okay, so here we are mixing in some golden yellow together for our flowers, and it's going to seem really bright, and that's a good thing. Okay. So we mix the golden yellow. We're adding a little bit more grass towards the middle, just a few strokes here and there of like a goldish color to show that there's some dry grass. Most important thing to remember is to just don't overdo it. You can always add more, but you can't add in less. It's kind of a cliched thing to say, but with painting, it's an important thing to have restraint sometimes, even when that's the last thing you want to do. Just adding some more yellow grass strokes in there. I just went in with a slightly darker color to add in just a touch more interest. Sometimes that really makes it pop. The most important thing, I think, is not to have your strokes run into each other or overlap too much. Um, I'm just adding in the dark lines to kind of make the lighter parts stand out just a little bit more, just to show the shadows. Now we are adding in those flowers I was just telling you about. Remember, smaller towards the back and larger the closer you get to the bottom. And they are going to grow in little groups. It's like flower families. And you just want to make sure they don't look too perfect. You don't want the pattern of the flowers to be too even or perfect, because that's not how they grow. This will keep you from having the painting look too stiff or unnatural. A more realistic look is what we want and are going for. So just kind of scatter them like you would take a handful of seeds and just throw them into the ground. Think about where they would lie and how the flowers would come up. I don't know if that's helpful, but kind of is for me. And now I'm taking the brush and making petal shapes, especially in the ones closest to us. You want to add a little more detail to those. Just some nice fanning out of the brush movements is going to really make them look more realistic. Pretty. Now, I don't know about you, but I kind of want to just step into this painting and go pick some wildflowers and maybe lay in the field and watch the sun set over the horizon. I think if you're feeling that way, then that means things are looking good. So I'm just trying something here. I think this was a little too orangey for me, but some orangey yellow there, I fixed it. Just a couple of almost like cattail type plants sprouting up, just to add a little bit of visual interest. And I'm just making those in like straight dabbed lines. And I'm just doing it along the side there for now. Again, mirroring the colors that you would find in the sunset. On either side to sort of frame our yellow flowers. And just use that detail brush very slowly and load it up with plenty of paint so it's nice and pigmented. Making slow fanning movements is going to help you get a more confident looking flower. Now I'm adding just a brighter, thicker coat of yellow on these flowers to make them stand out even more. It's almost like a yellow ochre, like a yellow orange sort of color. just giving them some more distinct value to stand out from the background very well. Now, after we're all done with that, I'm just adding in a couple more petals, making them look full and wild and lovely. And now I'm getting some medium olive green, adding in a little bit more to the hills and fields behind them. And before I do that, I am adding in some more reddish pink flowers that are going to be kind of dotting the hills back there. Now for the green grass, just adding in some more patches. And now finally, I'm adding dark centers to those flowers. Look how pretty that looks. Well, this lovely painting is coming to an end, and now I'll just ask you to go through and make any small changes that you feel would really help your painting come together in a way that is pleasing to you. and we're going to fast forward to after I've given it some time to dry, and things look a little lighter. As you can see, the light is a little bit better in this, a little more true to the actual painting, thankfully. So you can see what I am seeing. I am removing the painter's tape gently from each side. That's why it's so nice to use this, because look, we get a little frame right here, and it's so neat looking. And now it looks really beautiful. I hope that you are pleased with your work, and if not, you can always go back in. I just want to thank you for joining me and painting with me today as we kind of learn and experiment together. And I just want to say that it's been something I've been really looking forward to. And if you have anything that you'd like to see me paint, please drop it in the comments, or follow me on Instagram and send me a message or a comment and just let me know what you'd like to see or have me demo. I'm always looking for fun suggestions and things to do that will interest my friends and viewers. So again, I hope you had fun today and you enjoy your beautiful painting that you made. I would love to see what yours look like if you want to share, and I hope you do. And I will see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day.